templated policies where you can go on and you can find the latest up-to-date best practices. So within their policy, I've added in section 3 because we don't currently have that, and it's basically a best endeavour approach to get everything on the website, which I think is the right way forward. I've made an amendment in the process 4 section just to refer to as clerk rather than she so chooses, again just to future-proof the role. And then within the YRCA one, they have this appendix that's listed so that it's really clear that if there are any vexatious requests, how they would fall under that category, so that if we do find ourselves in that situation, which I hope we wouldn't, at least it's very clear to both sides the reasoning behind what it would be classified as vexatious. So that's YRCA's recommendation that I've added to our current one.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other appendixes that they recommend?
Say that again, Susie, sorry.
Are there any other appendixes that they recommend adding?
In relation to this policy,
this?
no, they were the ones that I called out. We were covered in our current wording already. The only thing to add to it is that our policy refers to the publication scheme in section 2. So I've included that. It's currently on our website, just so you can see it as a whole piece. That's our current publication scheme as to what we do and we don't cover. And again, I have matched that against the YRCA templated document to make sure everything is included and we're up to date, and we are. And the only thing that I've popped on here is to take out the old clerk's name because it's currently showing the old clerk.
Yeah.
And this, I've literally just realised that this covers 2 as well. It covers the privacy.
Yeah.
So the last staple piece is the privacy notice. I've done exactly the same again. I've compared it to YRCA, and I've also looked at another parish council to see if we're in line with what they do as well. And the only insertion there is about protecting children. So I've added in a line to protect anyone that's under the age of 16, basically saying that we would express parental guardian consent. That's quite sensible to add in.
Okay. Any comments, questions, anything to say?
I did feel some concern about the addition of vexatiousness because obviously it's a legal term, and I looked at the legal cases that it stemmed from in 1896 and what has happened coming forward. And then I looked at the ICO as well. And I think my first thought about it was, if the council's process or action being taken by councillors is being brought into question, it's surely in the council's interest to be as open and transparent as possible, which is what you stated on the front. And I also noted that there would have to be several points considered collectively: burden, the motive, the value or serious purpose, the harassment style, that they would all have to be considered very carefully to deny the freedom of information request. And that a lot of what we do should be, well, everything that we do should be in the interest of the public. And part of this Act is supposed to be that residents, for example, are able to hold public authorities to account for their performance, understand their decisions, that everything is transparent and just. And I don't know, I just wondered whether we were advised to bring this in by the ICO for particular reasons, or whether, you know, what the decision-making process is behind it.
It's in the model policy.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So with obviously me being new to role, I've been looking at all of our policies versus the recommendations and versus other councils. And therefore this is against the model policy as such. You know, the fact that I've popped in the policy statement to say, you know, we want to be more transparent, it's to have that whole complete view, isn't it? We want to be really, really transparent, not only on what information we put out there, and we want to stop the need, or people feeling the need to request personal freedom of information, because it's already out there, it's already on the website. So it's for that completeness that, for the positive side, we also need the rest of the policy, because otherwise I'd only be including part of it that is a preference to me and not all of it as a complete approach on the model.
Martin?
I was just going to say, these additions are just part of the review that we're doing, aren't they? And so we'd normally refer to the YLCA. And is it NELC as well?
Yeah, Mark as well.
That have the, yeah. So I think that it's a natural procedure. They've obviously added it for a reason, you know, because they're dealing with centres across like Yorkshire and the whole country. So I think it's best practice, isn't it? So.
Carolyn?
I think most organisations have some sort of vexatious complaints policy, because this is almost never used, but in very, very small cases where it is, the people it applies to can suck up all your resources after one complaint, and that means the people who actually have valid things they want to find out about can't find out about them because all the time's looked up. I think it's really a sensible thing to have.
And I'd just like to say quite a number of these are about, well, we're employers and we have a duty of care to our employees, who are the people dealing with these complaints, the people on the receiving end, and a number of them are actually about looking after our employees. And I mean, personally, I think it's important to have, agree with Carolyn, we might never get to use it, but we do need it on the book. Anybody else want to speak before I'm going to ask somebody to make a proposal about whether we put it forward with a recommendation to accept it to the meeting? Anybody else want to say anything? Okay, would somebody like to make a recommendation about this? About this policy, Martin?
I'll quite happily propose or recommend that we take on board the additions and take on board the YLCA and NELC additions as part of our policy.
So, proposing that we recommend that this document goes to the full parish council meeting for acceptance. Yeah.
Yes.
And would anybody like to second that? Carolyn is seconding it. I'm going to take a vote on that. So can we see those in favour of that, please? That's 4. Anyone against? Abstaining? Okay, 1 abstention. So 4 in favour, 1 abstention. Thank you. Item 7.2, to review the current standing orders of the parish council and propose recommendations where required to the full council. And again, Gemma, do you want to? I mean, I think it's fairly self-evident, but if you just want to
that's
talk through it.
Again, this was a previous action for this committee to review. However, it's a very big document, and I obviously have the resource of the best practice current model. So what I've done is gone through it to support the councillors on this committee in seeing what's the latest updated versions from the 2018 model, because the one that we had was based on the 2013 model. So I've gone through, to be extremely transparent, I've used Word annotator, so you can see all the comments down the side and you can see exactly what would be crossed out and what would be added. I've corrected some of the grammar that I could on the current formatting, and I've noticed some of the layout wasn't quite right. So where you can see quite a lot of red, it's more so correcting layout and grammar and things like that. Again, to future-proof, I've removed any reference to either just he singular or he, she, and changed it to they or their because I feel like that's appropriate. I've added in anything that wasn't in our existing standing orders that's from the updated version from YLCA and now. And then I've also added in a few bits and pieces that I found out along the way. So an example of that is under section 3 on page 7. When no chair or vice chair is present, how you would then conduct the taking the nominations, who would chair that singular meeting and how that would go, so I'll pop that in. And then the only other thing I think that is not self-explanatory, or it is self-explanatory, you'll see I've handwritten noted that we have a current proposed in principle motion from a previous meeting. That's on page 14 over to 15. So I've included that as well, so that we didn't miss that, and that was included as part of this review and the proposal to the full council. Again, looking at wording for what other parish councils use and what I thought was appropriate, but obviously that's for this committee to review, not myself.
And that particular one on page 14 deals with the point that's been raised at previous meetings, and Andy put it forward about having separate votes on the recommendations included in committee minutes. So it deals with the process for a proposal for a process to do this. I mean, just to say that any councillor at any time can propose amendments to standing orders, provided that they're put forward in a, the right way and clear and understandable. Yes, Susie.
Thank you. I felt, firstly, that it wasn't quite in the spirit of the proposal suggested by Andy in June, which is about separating an approval for the minutes from an approval for the recommendations, because they are separate. But we did actually attend quite a number of trainings in the first couple of or 3 months, and we did ask about this particular matter, and this is a quote for what we were told by the YLCA. So, in relation to recommendations from committees for the full parish council, if a committee has delegated powers, for anything delegated, all the council needs to do is note the minutes. For recommendations, however, other recommendations should be listed on the agenda, so these can be considered separately by the council. The council needs to have any recommendation as an agenda item, rather than just absorbed into a set of minutes. So that's what we were told, but I don't know if Gemma doesn't mind, if you would like to ask about it. That's what we were told.
It's certainly not
the training.
It's not in the model standing orders,
It's not a
is it?
mandatory item in standing orders. It would be something that would be agreed by this council to add it into our Ackworth Parish Council. In terms of obviously the essence of what I've popped forward, it would be to recommend to have the opportunity to split them. What I'm conscious of is in meetings to have it as an open discussion on every recommendation. The actual full parish council meeting then effectively becomes the committee meeting, and it's a repeat of the committee meeting. And as we are a committee meeting led parish council, it's important that it's proposed in principle already that they will be split. It's just how we go about splitting them. So if you receive the meeting minutes in advance and there's something on there that you want to split, you would have to pop that in writing to the chair so that they're aware of that, and a vote take place. That was, but like I say, this is only my recommendation based on my interpretation.
I suppose I was surprised to see a vote needing to take place if a query is made on a particular recommendation.
How would you propose that you would move forward in it? So if there was a query and it was against
So which
If the vote is against, then there is no opportunity to discuss it at all. Then, is what I'm trying to express. That if you have asked for it to be discussed, but then the vote is against that, then there is no opportunity.
But it wouldn't be discussed. We can't be. I mean, in terms of expediting the meeting, we'd never get to the end of the meeting, and it's to try and set out the way it is, to try and deal with a scenario where there could be a councillor who, and it's perfectly possible, just wants to create mischief for calling for a discussion on every single recommendation in every single set of committee minutes, and we'd never ever get to the end of the committee meetings. And a committee structure, the whole nature of it is it works on trust. You know, we as committee members here have the confidence of the full council to consider the things on these agendas and make recommendations, and without then the council needing to discuss in detail every single recommendation. And there's that point of it. There's the point on the ones, I'll bring you in, Martin, on the one side about having to cover all angles and having to set it out in such a way that it couldn't be used by people who wanted just really to mess with the business of the meeting and call for discussion, discussion and debate on every single recommendation. It's not practical. And secondly, that it has to be, if there is going to be, if no sorry, I had a second, but I forgot what it was. So the proposal says that somebody or the standing order says that if you want a particular recommendation in the committee minutes to be voted on separately, I've remembered the second one, you can ask for that to be done, but it doesn't allow for discussion on those items, because the understanding is, and the way it works, is that the committee has discussed it, and the committee comes, and the committee has all the information, and the committee brings a recommendation. The other point I was going to make is, thinking about all angles, it is possible, again, that someone who, a council member who wanted to disrupt the business of the council could, or council members, could vote against every single recommendation in every single committee if we take them all on block, and then the clerk can't get on with any work, the council can't do any work, the council can't take any actions if they're put on block and they're carried or they're voted against. So that's why it's set out the way it is, to enable individuals to raise specific issues, but to try and prevent a situation where a council or councillors could disrupt the business of the council and the council meeting by, one, having discussion on every item that goes on interminably, and we never get to the end of any business, and two, voting against all the recommendations of all the committees, so then we can't get on with our business. I'm going to bring Martin in next.
I mean, over the years that I've been a parish councillor anyway, I know that the way the minutes have been presented has changed. To me, when, like for instance, when I'm looking at the F&GP minutes of the last meeting, I wasn't there, but I think when you read through those minutes, it's clearly retrospectively recommended for approval, vote completed, all in favour. So that, I think it's self-evident. Like, there was clearly discussion by the committee, they recommended it, it's come to full council. I either trust that committee and the people on that committee to be having the discussions needed, which I do. I think every councillor here has, got the best intentions of Ackworth to the best of their ability. So therefore, I'm not going to undermine that. You either trust the committees or you don't. And if you don't, you scrap every committee and everything just goes to full council, which you'll have a parish council meeting that'll go on for days possibly, because it'll be discussing every single matter. And I don't think that that's workable or practical. That's how I kind of see it, and I think
Going back to
that's right.
the spirit of the proposal, which was suggested by Andy, is that the minutes and the recommendations from the meeting are two completely separate animals. Agreeing the minutes is one thing, agreeing the recommendations is another. And that also is something that we asked about at a YC on LA training, and that we were told they should be voted on separately or agreed separately. I'm just saying what we were told, and having asked the question.
Yes, Gemma.
So I am aware of what Councillor Sherry is saying. YLCA have recommended that, but they haven't specified how you go about that. So it's down to, because it's not a mandatory standing order, it's up to said council, whoever decide to adopt that, to take it on in the form that best fits their council. But I just wanted to verify that I am aware of that too, that YLC recommendation from training I've been on as well.
Martin.
Can I recommend that we adopt the proposal then of what's in the standing orders
Okay,
that's
I'll
put forward?
take that as a proposal. Is that seconded? Do we accept the standing order? If it's seconded by Caroline, proposed Martin, seconded by Caroline. Can we just say before we vote, as I said, any councillor can put forward amendments to standing orders. I've done it myself in the past. So, that is a possibility, if anybody wanted to do it in the future, to change that. Okay, so anyway, we've got it on the table, we've got